I'm going to call the Friday, October 3rd, 2025 Economic and Community Development Committee meeting to order. The clerk will please call roll.
Councillor Kaczynski?
Present.
Councillor Heath?
Present.
President Byers?
Present.
Thank you. Announcement of open meeting recordings. Is anyone here recording the meeting today? There's no one here. No one is recording the meeting other than staff. Begin with the review and approval of the meeting minutes of the September 19th, 2025 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to waive the reading of the minutes and approve them as presented. Second.
Motion made by President Tyro, seconded by Councillor Heath to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item number 2, September Economic and Community Development Update. Good afternoon, Director Stevens.
Good afternoon, Chair Kaczynski. Starting off, I'll just talk about quickly the rear main project. That project, we've kind of gone around on some of the task items because we are waiting on approval from National Grid for that project. We've been waiting on them for a number of, actually probably close to 2 months now, for a review of the project, of the proposed movement of the wires underground, as well as the conduits that we'd have to put in to the project site as well. Given that we haven't gotten responses from them in regards to whether or not they intend to change the location of any of those conduit positions or any of the movement of the wires underground, we can't move forward with those items on the schedule, and they've kind of been doing their best to hopscotch around to what items still remain that can be moved forward with so that we remain on schedule. Honestly, they've been ahead of schedule up till now, and I can't fault them for the delays from National Grid's part. We just heard back from Fuss & O'Neill in regards to this work, and they have gone back to us that they're in the final approval process. They should get back to us hopefully in the next week or two, but this is kind of a point that could potentially be a choke point in terms of awaiting the response from National Grid further. We're hoping not. I'm pushing Fuss & O'Neill to check in with National Grid as much as is amicable to maintain the relationship that the contractor, the engineering team, the city has with National Grid in terms of getting a response. So we're really pushing all the buttons to make sure that these outstanding items to kind of move forward with a lot of the project, move forward appropriately. They've done work, installed the water line up to what will be the sidewalk, approved the new change order, which is for the blow-off valve, everything having to do with the splash pad and water feature on the site. So that was unintended. It's just for the sake of winterizing the site when it comes to this time of year to make sure that we can blow out all the water. No backflow preventers are installed properly. So we just had those change orders come in. I still have to review them and give my sign off to send off to the rest of the signatories in City Hall. But we're looking forward to moving forward with that. And I'll have a more that change order printed out in full for the next department monthly update. That's really what I have for rear main. I'll move on to the master plan unless anyone has any questions.
I have no questions on that. Thank
Okay. The master plan, we are planning on having an open house sometime in late October, early November. Probably in Perry Auditorium. We're aiming for usually around 6 to 7. We're still finalizing the exact date for that, but it's a, come in, it doesn't have to be coming right at 6. Like I said, it's an open house, so people are feel free to come, and I'll be glad to kind of at least provide an update maybe to a member of City Council to present at a future City Council meeting, given that we'll probably not have we'll probably have the date pretty close in mind to the next department monthly update. We've reviewed the full inventory and assessment report from Barrett Planning Group for the master plan, and I've reviewed specifically the land use and economic development sections, which are directly under my purview for my department. We've sent the rest of the sections having to do with historical resources, natural resources, housing development, and transportation to the appropriate departments in the city as well. So we'll move forward with other individuals, whether they be city officials, city elected officials, or other community leaders that we think would have kind of weight in the game, in terms of wanting to chime in for the development of that project. But that's all I have for the master plan.
And just, because I'm a little biased because I'm on the steering committee.
Yep.
And I have more info about it, the open house late October, early November, that is for the public to come
Yes.
and to share their insight on what has been done so far in the master plan and give their feedback on that. Right?
Yeah.
That's an in-person event to be able to do that.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of this has been done, I mean, it's been posted on the city website for months and months about, how they can contribute to it, but this is an in-person
It's
for Q&A and for feedback.
Yeah,
Okay.
very high level overview of each of the chapters for the inventory and assessment of what has been done so far, what has been identified as potential areas of address for us to make note of in the master plan. And it's a chance for us to get public feedback, which is required as part of the actual process of developing the master plan in and of itself. So again, I'll look forward to sharing around. I'll probably send around individualized emails to all the city councilors to let them know when that date is finalized. We're just trying to figure out, we're bouncing around a couple dates and they all happen to land on dates where there are major city events happening. So we want to make sure that we pick a date that it can be kind of the highlight so that there's no conflicts of different events happening, so that we can get more of a attendance like we did to the last one back in May. The hazard mitigation plan, my department has reviewed chapters 3 and 5 for the risk assessment for community assets and community capabilities of the drafted plans, and I've sent all the outstanding comments and questions related to those chapters back over to the planning group that we're working with, which is Weston and Sampson. We did hold a public information session on September 18th about the plan. However, no attendees were present for it. It was advertised on social media, it was advertised on the city's homepage, it was advertised in a number of places, but unfortunately no attendees. So I'll look, with that being kind of the availability of the planning group to host that public information session, I'll look to holding one myself at a future info session, so that we can get hopefully some public input into that, and similarly to the master plan.
And I'm sorry, the public info session that was held with no attendees, when was that?
Yep, that was on September 18th.
September. Thank you. Okay. Any questions, comments from anybody? Go ahead.
I don't know, I just want to say that it's just, obviously you did everything you could to go ahead and get the word out for the public to go ahead and attend. It's just disappointing that no one attended. And,
Yeah.
we put it out there, we put these out for the public to go ahead and, put their 2 cents in, put their concerns, things as such, and, how we're supposed to know what you want or what you would like if you're not attending these.
Yeah, we do our best to kind of infer, the best movement for the city in terms of our risk assessment, but a lot of the people dealing with this, I mean, there are many people in the city who have lived here their whole lives who know the city better than, say, myself, who have been here for a year, and I can only learn so much in a year, so we do our best to infer off of our experiences, what we deal with in our day-to-day in terms of our roles here, but really the public is a truly invaluable resource for plans like this. So that's why I hope to host a second one myself, because I understand the need for public feedback for this, and even though we don't have necessarily in our contract with Weston and Sampson to host a second info session for specifically this, that doesn't mean it's going to stop me from at least giving a second chance at getting public feedback for this.
And I was going to thank you, Councilor. Is there anything for?
Okay.
And I was going to say, and I appreciate the extra effort to do so, and on your end to do that. And,
Yeah.
No, we'll see what we get from it, and I certainly think that, the best thing to do is put the opportunity out there and see if we can get any feedback.
Yep.
Anything further?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
I will kind of keep these together because they're both GRA related. The Garbos property sale and 205-213 property sale, both are which still under executive session because we haven't entered the closing for both of them, but we are moving forward with sellers for both properties.
I'm sorry, you said Garbos, and then what was the second
The
one?
205-213 Main Street.
Yeah.
The Garbos being, I believe it's 115 Mill Street and 85 Winter Street parcels right next to Timpani Crossroads. Just for the sake of the public, both those parcels being in urban renewal zones, the land disclosure agreements for both have to be approved by EOHLC in regards to them being sold, either for the betterment of the public, for a public good, or at a fair market valuation. So we are in the process of working with HLC in terms of moving forward with the LDA, specifically for the Garbos. 205-213, we're in a little bit, I think further back than that. We've just kind of given initial notification to the buyer that the board is looking forward to moving forward with the sale, and just getting the lawyers involved in terms of drafting up the terms of the purchase and sale agreement therein. But, I don't want the city thinking that these parcels are just sitting vacant and that we're not looking to do anything with them. These are high priority items specifically for myself. I have a lot of correspondence both with the GRA's real estate lawyer, John Barrett, as well as the lawyer representing the sellers or the buyers from Garbos, as well as the buyer from 205-213, and giving kind of recommendations therein to kind of guide them on next steps of how this kind of process moves forward. So doing our best to move forward and make sure that these parcels are allocated properly to a good public use. Or maybe not necessarily public use, but a use that the public can be proud of it going towards.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the committee?
Just for clarity, thank you, Counselor, I'm sorry, just for clarity, 205 Main Street's the property right across from the police station?
Yes.
Over there in the corner. Alright.
I know one of the concerns with 205-213 is that it was too close to the existing street, Main Street there. All properties built, following the sale and development have to follow modern city code, so there isn't going to be the worry about not being able to see around that corner if you're going down Willow Street and trying to take a turn and wondering whether or not there are any cars coming. I know that was a concern for a lot of citizens, and any developments, again, will have to follow modern city code rather than what was followed at the time of that building's construction. So they'll have to be pushed further back from Main Street to give proper sight lines.
Appreciate the clarification on that, because that is a big question people have.
Yeah.
The amount of relief I've heard from constituents being like, oh, with the building on, I can see so much better. I feel so much safer.
Yeah.
So it is, and it had lived its life and it needed to be done anyways, but it's just kind of an added thing that's for public safety that's helpful. So, any other further questions, comments? Thank you.
The Greenwood Pool. I know we had the road closed on October 1st for utility disconnections, and the asbestos abatement was successfully completed. Prior to that, one of the things that is outstanding for this is the site ID review with Mass DEP. The only waste generation that we're expecting from the site is the waste oil remaining in the equipment that was used to, I believe, heat the building, potentially heat the pool. I wasn't sure if the pool was heated or not, but there is waste oil in the some of the equipment that we have to file with Mass DEP in terms of getting their review of that. We're just waiting to hear back from them in terms of that. We're just making sure that we're following all the correct processes to make sure that those materials are identified properly and are properly, then disposed of. So we're just waiting to hear back from them on that. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty much where that project stands. Once we get the filing from Mass DEP, they can move out that remaining equipment, dispose of that remaining waste oil, and move on with the above ground building demolition.
Thank you. So everything seems on schedule as much as it.
I mean, now we're already at the beginning of October, and I believe the original schedule had it for above ground building demolition at mid-October, just about. So we're maybe like a week, 2 weeks out. But I would say we're at the behest of Mass DEP at this point, similar to National Grid. It is at the top of their inbox because there was. We had filed it, and Tyne Bond have been very clear with them about the need for this to move forward with this project. I'll still hope that we can get the above ground building demolition started in mid-October, but again, it's going to be at the behest of Mass DEP in regards to when we can get that site ID review filed for the project.
Thank you. Further questions or comments?
Thank you, Chair Kaczynskis. One of the things was, I think there was a little bit of a delay because we couldn't get detail to go ahead and cover, and that's why they couldn't get detail, is from my understanding, talking with the construction crew who were behind because the police couldn't give detail. So
That was also a delay of getting the utility cuts and move on to other task items that they need to get completed before the above ground building removal, was the delay of the police detail in order to close the road. I believe there were 2 instances of requests for police details that were then canceled or rescheduled and then put forward to a different day. So I mean, that's relayed us back, but the project itself, everything that my department can do and the construction team can do without the both police detail, now that that's completed but had been delayed, and Mass DEP and their filing, those are all being done.
Thank you. Anything further?
that's all, thank you.
Okay.
I'd say the only other thing besides talking about Mackey Park is just give a quick update on the Complete Streets grant program. That is a grant program that is filed biannually. So this is right around the time where we would be able to put in for another round of grant funding. But the city had been awarded, I believe, $100,000 for the calendar year, and had been awarded previously $89,083, leaving the city with possible grant funding of $10,917, which doesn't really give the city a whole lot. It really gives it nothing in terms of actually moving forward with any of our Complete Streets projects that we already have. But this did give us a chance. Before we found out about that award, we were able to move forward and get re-estimations on the remaining Complete Streets projects to really put us in a good place for the next grant cycle, for when the funds get recycled. Basically, when each calendar year the city gets a certain allotment, those funds get spent out either at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year in terms of its grant awards, and those would kind of come back at the beginning of next year. So we can look towards having a pretty good application in, depending on what our allotment is for the next grant cycle at the beginning of 2026.
Great. Thank you. Questions, comments from the committee? Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Director Stevens. That concludes the September Economic and Community Development update.
Good update.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will leave an update at the next regular city council meeting. Thank you, President Tyros, for putting that on the agenda. There's nothing for first time on the agenda. In subcommittee, item 11454, a report on the investigation of the Mackey Park project. We will get an update from Director Stevens. We had also submitted some questions to, 2 questions that were motioned by President Tyros to Mayor Nicholson. Those questions and the answers to them are in our packet. for today. I don't know if we wanted to begin by discussing those, it's whatever the pleasures of the committee, or if we wanted to go ahead with Director Stevens. I think we should start with Director Stevens, because it might kind of allude to that, and then if we have other questions, we can go from there, if that's okay with the committee. Director Stevens?
We've moved forward with change order 5 for the project, which is for the wheelchair accessible rounded sycamore table. I won't go into the full name, it's actually quite long in terms of how it's bolted together, it's sandblasted. The checkerboard top for the tables, and the semi-gloss. We've been given word from Busy Bee on September 19th that the work is looking to about 6 to 8 weeks out. So given that it was September 19th, that gives us roughly end of October, early November, would that be end of October? 6 to 8 weeks out. That's the latest that they gave us in terms of the timeline for that.
So they would start 6 to 8 weeks out? Or they, like, what does that mean?
The word that we got from them was, as discussed before, per the manufacturer, only one of the seats can be left out to maintain the stability of the table. I sent over an okay to go ahead for the order, and they said it was 6 to 8 weeks out. Please let me know if there are any changes by Monday. And that was from Sharon over at Busy Bee. We've responded to them twice following that, on September 19th and September 23rd, checking in on the schedule for when the start of the construction will be. Given that the end of the October Fest event has already occurred and we're looking towards when construction will actually begin. I believe the estimated construction completion time included in my packets for the last meeting was, I believe, mid-November. So it would be a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, there isn't that much work to be done.
So I guess that's my question, is like, so it sounds like from September 19th, work's gonna begin 6 to 8 weeks out.
Yeah.
But the work itself only takes a couple of weeks, is my
Yeah, we would still have the project completion date of
like the
mid-November.
Okay.
I believe it might have been the 14th. I don't have that contract amendment with me in
That's
terms
okay.
of.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a time frame and just to understand that, like, that has not changed.
Yeah.
So like, they
All
might
of the
not,
equipment.
might not have an exact date.
Yeah.
And I understand from what you've said that they are, they are held to what manufacturers have and, that kind of stuff. They've obviously already been working on this since our
Yeah.
last meeting because it was signed and said and delivered and done. So
Yep.
I understand that. So basically none of that has changed is what I wanna make
Yep.
sure. Because those are the questions we get a lot of it. The bones of it are important and I appreciate the detail too.
Yeah.
But I just wanna make sure I'm not understanding it differently.
No,
than I did before.
that, they need to get all the materials in place to move forward with the full contract amendment that I had presented at the last meeting. And all of those materials have a total timeline of 6 to 8 weeks out from September 19th.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, that's really all I have for the project. If we hear back from Busy Bee in regards to what the actual timeline of construction will be, again, me and both I and Nick Day over at Ty and Bond as one of the project engineers have been on top of Busy Bee trying to get a clear answer as to when the construction will start. But given their response of the 6 to 8 weeks, it seems like they'll still be in compliance with the contract amendment and the project completion date of mid-November.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments on that info regarding the Mackey Park project? Any further questions or comments?
I'd just like to speak to the motions last week and thank the mayor for the answers and the letters provided, because I think they've answered a few questions for me. And they're important questions, right? Because there are two questions of why now was the funding made available for Mackey Park from downtown phase 3, and what were the department monthly updates that were an output of the Mackey Park investigation. And I think they've made me realize some operations of the city and where I think we need to do better. We have, this committee formed due to Mackey Park and to provide additional oversight to your department, Director Stevens, which I think very pleased and very impressed with the progress and the changes made to that department. I think are excellent, but in reviewing the letter, I found that the committee's question answered, and this is what the mayor had responded: the funds became available due to the receipt of an accurate final quote from both the contractors related to downtown phase 3 and Mackey Park, allowing for the difference of funds to be freed up from their previously assigned uses. And what that means is that at the end of August, the city auditor reclassified about $20,000 from downtown phase 3 from ARPA funds for downtown phase 3 to Mackey Park. Now that reclassification is a pretty big number. It didn't require a council vote, but it raises the questions of communication, transparency, and awareness of what the problems the city's facing. Because I believe when we reviewed, and I'm glad that we had monthly department updates to review, the auditor had placed a question mark in February next to the Mackey Park line item under section of funding source issues within the city. So back in February, we had been made aware that this funding issue was happening. This committee was formed in January during rules reform. So in review, we noted from a February report that the auditor had identified funding issues. The committee had been updated and notified that we were waiting on wires from the mayor to be moved for the funding to be freed up. In August, after the chair had requested additional funding sources to be pursued so that the project could be completed, a reclassification occurred from the ARPA funds. So I think it highlighted for me that while it's good that we have monthly department updates that are delivered to the mayor, I think the tool by which those department updates could be improved. I certainly had a hard time following the updates in terms of, for example, what month the update was being given, where projects laid, where interrelations or dependencies related between different departments. I think if some of those things were called out earlier, in the spring, even summer, we'd be in a different position right now where we're fighting against the backdrop of winter coming for construction season ending, and obviously missing Oktoberfest and the summer abuse by, a significant, disproportionate part of our city and for representation. So I thank the director. Obviously from your updates, you've been hammering away at this problem, and I think it's unfortunate that it took, the question from the chair for a meeting to finally occur in mid-August for this idea for reclassifying the funds to come around. Glad it happened now, but I think there's just areas for improvement that we should be cognizant of. So I thank the mayor for the update, and I certainly learned something from it.
Thank you, President Tyros. Further discussion? I would just add that I would say that I do agree with that. Again, you could not have been more transparent with us up to and worked harder to get the original funds where they needed to be when finally it was like, I'm glad that we're sitting here saying we have 6 to 8 weeks out, we have a completion date that has not changed. That to me is where we are, and I don't know if that would have happened if you hadn't acted in mid-July to basically like, okay, what are we doing here? So I do appreciate those conversations, but again, the point of this committee was to offer support, and so I'm glad that we were able to do that, but certainly is by the action of your department, so thank you for that. Anything further on this item?
Right.
Okay, so if there are no objections, we will keep it on the calendar as we've said in previous meetings until the project is completed, and I expect kind of here on moving on, unless we have other questions that pop up, that we will be updated on, and hoping that it just stays on this schedule and we get there and we can visually see it for your department's sake and all the work that you've put in to be able to do that, but certainly we will keep it on there for the project's completion. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by President Tyros, seconded by Councilor Heath to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.